All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into a really fascinating album, one that got a ton of critical attention because it sits at the absolute heart of a huge debate. It's a full-length techno record made almost entirely with AI. We're going to see exactly how one of the top critics broke this whole thing down.
So, to really get this album, you first have to understand the world it was born into. A major critic called the music scene in 2026, well, they said it was facing an unprecedented crisis of authorship. And look, this wasn't just some artsy debate, This was a full-blown existential panic.
I mean, the whole landscape was just pure chaos. You had the major record labels taking AI developers to federal court. They were throwing around accusations of massive copyright infringement, even, and this is wild, the unauthorized cloning of proprietary human voices. The line between what a human creates and what a computer mimics was getting blurrier by the second. And smack dab in the middle of all this mess, an artist named Jeffrey A. Brick releases his album, Detroit.
So who is the artist behind this album? And what is it about Detroit that makes it so important that it deserves this kind of deep, critical look? Let's zoom in on the person behind the machine.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. The critic makes a huge point about Brick's background. See, he's not your typical techno producer. Not even close. His day job was in the super bureaucratic world of American healthcare. Think about it. A world of complex, impersonal systems trying to manage the messiness of the human body. That experience, plus his own struggles with chronic illness, gave him this really unique view on human fragility and the machinery we build around it. And those themes, they're all over this album.
So how is this music even made, right? The critic is clear. We can't just think of it as somebody pushing a button. They call the process algorithmic curation. The human artist, Brick, is more like an architect. He's not playing the notes himself. He's designing the vision, he's crafting the text prompts, and he's guiding the AI to build the final piece of music.
And this just shows how deep the whole concept goes. The entire album is basically the real-life version of a novel Brick wrote way back in 2017. In his book, a character becomes this disembodied consciousness that creates music digitally, without a body. And now, with this album, Brick has literally turned his own science fiction into sonic reality, using AI to create music he physically couldn't.
Okay, so let's get into the music. The critic really breaks down the album like it's a sonic map of Detroit. Each track explores a totally different corner of the city's identity, and it all starts with the title track.
So the album opens with its title track, Detroit. But instead of some high-energy club anthem that you might expect, the critic describes it as something completely different, a pre-dawn mood piece. It's supposed to feel like you're standing in the city's Hart Plaza at like 7 in the morning.
The critic's analysis here is just fantastic. On one hand, the track is a clear nod to the founders of Detroit techno, the Belleville Three, and their whole Afrofuturist vision. But then, it just smashes that cosmic sci-fi vibe right into a brick wall of bureaucratic reality with a literal lyric about healthcare.gov. Yeah, you heard that right. This collision between the cosmic and the mundane is what gives the album its power, blurring the line between the human body and the machine.
Now let's move on to the next track, Electric City, and see how the album builds on this. Here, Brick does something different. He strips away all the lyrics. This one is purely instrumental. And according to the critic, this is a really powerful political move. By taking out the human voice, the track becomes a direct tribute to techno pioneers like Juan Atkins. It communicates what the critic calls a mechanical truth, almost like you're hearing the sound of a factory floor. In a track like this, the human element isn't in the performance at all. It's entirely in the vision, in that curatorial intent.
Okay, jumping ahead a bit, the critic highlights a track that they say perfectly captures the core conflict of the whole project. It's called A Heidelberg Story, and it's trying to sonically represent this famous, sprawling, and kind of chaotic outdoor art installation in Detroit that's built from junk.
And this is where things get really fascinatingly complicated. The art itself is totally wild and handmade, but techno music is famously rigid and structured, so you get this friction. The AI's vocals act like a tour guide, just listing off all the different parts of the art. But here's the twist. The critic points out what they call an unintended tragedy. You have an AI singing about the beauty of organic decay and handmade art, an experience it can never, ever truly understand.
And that brings us to the core theme that the critic keeps coming back to, again and again, throughout the entire album. This constant, fascinating friction between the human artist's vision and the AI's execution.
Just look at this breakdown. The artist wants to capture chaos, but the AI imposes order. The artist is going for this minimal, slow burn vibe, and the algorithm is like, nope, let's push this into peak dance floor energy. The artist wants that raw, unpredictable sound of old analog synthesizers, but the AI delivers this mathematically perfect version that it lacks that human scream.
So here's the crucial point. The critic finds that this tension, this constant push and pull, isn't a failure. It is the project. This friction is exactly what makes the album such an important and honest document of our time. It's not a bug, it's the main feature.
So after breaking down all these complex layers, what's the final verdict? Can a machine really, truly have soul?
Well, the critic gives the album a massive 4.5 out of 5 stars. So, yeah, this isn't just some weird little experiment. In their eyes, it's a monumental piece of work that you have to take seriously.
And really, the review forces us to ask an even bigger question. For decades, electronic music fans have talked about the soul of their analog gear. But the critic here proposes that maybe we've all been looking in the wrong place. The soul isn't in the wires and circuits.
The soul, they conclude, is in the human element. It's in the historical knowledge, the careful curation, the artistic choices, and that simple, powerful human desire to just make something. The AI is described as a steel lung, an incredibly powerful tool that can do the work, but it's the human artist who provides the will to breathe.
So, in the end, Detroit is way more than just an album. It's this rigorous, intellectual, and artistic exercise. It's a perfect snapshot of a moment in time when both a city and an entire creative medium are being radically reinvented.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. What if all this panic, this so-called crisis of authorship, what if it's not a crisis at all? What if we're simply witnessing the birth of the most complex and maybe the most collaborative instrument ever made?